Maybe it won't work. Oh my God.
We're live.
We are kind of live?
Yes, we are.
Oh my gosh. I'm Proof for LinkedIn Live. Okay. Okay, so we are live and in full effect. Thank you so much for joining us for our In Conversation session today. We're just going to give people a bit of an opportunity to log in. Nathaniel and I are ready and waiting for you, but we know that, well, let's keep it real. Technology is broadcasting across multiple channels. It's no joke, people. It's no joke. So let me let me make sure that everyone can log in. I see you guys logging in gently. Thank you so much for sharing your Sunday with us today. This yeah. I can't even say hey. Hi Nathaniel, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it's an honor. It's really an honor, and thank you guys so much for all of the retweeting and all of the sharing of this broadcast. Um, we are in the middle of tough times, and our attention is being pulled in a lot of places. So I don't take for granted that your attention is on us today. So thank you for that. We're going to make it worth your while. Hello, Martha. Thank you so much for joining. One thing, if yeah, thank you so much, Martha, for just even being the first comment. It's nice to see your face here. We are streaming comments from all of the platforms. So if you're joining us via Facebook, if you're joining us via LinkedIn, then we're streaming comments from both of those channels. So please do join us and register at StreamYard so that I can see your name and face. That being said, there's a few kind of admin points I need to get out of the way. Okay. We don't tolerate trolls here. Hello, India. Nice to meet you. I see you. Hi, Sarita. Nice to see you as well. Just want to make sure I have a few key messages, some admin messages. I want to make sure that you know that this is a safe space. I have my, as I call it, Royal Guard out on force. Trolling will not be permitted. And not only will it not be permitted, it will also be reported to the authorities. And guess what? I'm on the committee. So I'm going to make sure that I come for you if you come and troll on this. This is not designed for this is designed for your safe space. This is designed for a safe conversation. So everyone, please do contribute. Nathaniel and I are going to have a conversation. We've been collecting kind of questions, comments. Both of us have been on the BBC at separate times talking about this. And so there's a lot of stuff that we want to try to unpack. On top of that, I'm going to be looking at your comments throughout. So thank you so much. I see Samantha and Diana Ali, my mentor from when I was 19 years old. Thank you so much from Toronto. Oh, from all over the world. Hello, Alex Stern. Hello, Nikki Batterman. Please do log in and share your names with us so that we know who you are. It's and own your comment. It is a safe place. We'll keep you as protected. We have a Royal Guard protecting and looking and monitoring the conversations to make sure that they are entirely safe and healthy and productive. So that's my first admin message. The second admin message is that this today is for navigating and healing in regards to Black trauma and pain. So even though I have invited our white allies to be on this space, today the platform is a Black platform. And I know that, if you're my friend, I've been doing this for years, haven't really stuttered, haven't really stopped. It's been the same thing. We are going to be having another session in regards to where do we go from here for our white allies. However, this session today is about learning about and validating some of the experiences that all of us are going through and being able to kind of put them together and get some real tangible kind of actions that we can take to heal and to go forward when we are ready to be navigating this in our own space, in our own time, in our own way. And so thank you so much for joining. Paul, Charlene, Munir, thank you so much for joining us. Today with me, I have a man that I am honored to call my friend. am also honored because he is a therapist, a psychotherapist. And, you know, I don't shy away from therapy. You guys know I got my therapist and I love her. She's doing the do with me and helping me do the work in terms of my journey of self-improvement. And I thought that to balance out the energy as well, right? Because sometimes these spaces are quite kind of, female, women dominated. And so I wanted to make sure that, between Nathaniel and I, that we can really balance out and help as many people as we can. And that is just, both men and women. And so thank you for this. Nathaniel, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it as always.
So when you were on the BBC let me just give a little credibility, because you got to give credibility in the beginning. When you were on the BBC, what were you talking about a few weeks ago? Just let us know, just a little something.
A little something.
A little.
First of all, let me just introduce myself to everyone watching. My name is Nathaniel Oke, not Oak or Oki, as some people may have mispronounced. And the reason why I'm specifying that, I'll talk about that a little bit later in this talk. I'm a psychotherapist, been one for over 12 years. I own a company called Talking Therapy Clinic, and the company is specifying directly with one-to-one and group therapy, and also providing training opportunities for different organizations that need their staff to be trained up accordingly. So that is a little bit my background. Now, answering the question, what was I talking about on the BBC? I was talking about this thing called collective trauma, collective racial trauma, specifically in regards to what we're talking about right now, and how that is prevalent right now for everyone. For Black people around the world, is not limited to you being in the US or you being directly impacted by it because George Floyd, for an example, was your relative or anything like that. I was talking about the collective trauma that we all have from seeing people that look like us being slaughtered, and also the other collective elements of it in regards to other forms of racism, not the overt, but also, as those that may live in this country may attest to, the covert. Yeah.
As you spoke, tears came to my eyes because I should let you guys know where I'm coming from just a little bit. So if you don't know, I am the chair of the Black British Business Awards, chair and co-founder. We started 7 years ago. And I have we have many programs, and we also have our awards ceremony. But on top of that, I'm not sure if you guys know, those of you who follow me would know that my father passed away 2 weeks ago, to almost to this day. And it felt like when everything started exploding in the States, I honestly didn't think I could bear it any longer. It's been so hard. And so I struggled because I knew that I was the chair of the awards and I should probably say something. However, on the other hand, I felt I was not equipped to say anything because I did feel empty. I was still in mourning and I was still grieving and, making those arrangements that you do when someone that you love passes. And so when I came for this session, the intention was that I wasn't going to go online and make some kind of big political statement because, quite frankly, I've been doing it. I am doing it. I will be doing it tomorrow. It was more about how do I survive? How do I go from here? How do I acknowledge my grief? How do I work through it? And how am I able to get up tomorrow? Because there are some times when, let's be honest, we don't feel like getting up. And so that's the spirit of this session. It's not going to be a big, there are other means, there are other ways of you being able to demonstrate and be able to show your support. But what this session is about today is about how you are able to work through the collective trauma. In addition to having COVID-19, in addition to meaning that the lockdown parameter measures, all of those things kind of push together, and then how you get through and get on the other side so that you are kind of walking into your purpose. So love you guys for this, and it's an act of love with which Nathaniel and I are doing this.
So before you, sorry to cut in.
Yeah, no, please. This is a conversation.
I'm not quite emotional, but condolences for your loss. And we were talking about grief on my live yesterday on the therapy hour, and one comment stands out, and it's just stuck with me since I read it, which is, grief is the price we pay for love, for loving someone so deeply. And so definitely my condolence to yourself and also to your family. All right.
Oh, thank you so much. I love you guys so much. So, and thank you for your condolences. I see your comments. So actually, and please bring in your comments as well. Please do. And we're reading, we're collecting. There are people kind of, yes, highlighting the comments to me. And so please, if you have questions, then let me know. So I guess first off is, it feels like my Black superpower has been taken away. What does that mean? You say, like, it's maybe sound a bit facetious, but in times of grief, in times of trauma, in times of pain, what I do know about my people is that we can literally get together with a cup of tea on the side of the road, and we have each other. There's something empowering and that we validate each other's experience. I see it at the awards every year. And all of a sudden with COVID-19, the heartbreaking thing about that was that I couldn't go to see my father at all. Like, I have visions. It attacks me at night because he died alone. And then on top of that, when we're look with everything that's happening with the protests that we're having here and in this country, then how I can't even get together with my friends. I feel almost guilty that, on one hand, the government is saying, look, we're still social distancing. We're still in lockdown here. But on top of that, and we know, like, I am a victim of COVID, if that makes sense. And so I can't, but it's almost too much. And so how do we unpack all of that? Like, how do I start to unpack some of that?
There's a lot to unpack. And currently, right now, you touched on grief. You're in mourning right now. And that the immediacy of your loss is so overpowering, overwhelming, that in itself is enough to shut all the windows, all the shutters down. Let me just hide away from the world. And to compound that, what is going on right now is the whole world is in mourning with you, as you are in mourning not only for your father, but also for the world, for yourself, for your own memories. The reason why I coined collective racial trauma is because right now it seems as if the gates have been opened, right? And all our own individual personal experiences are now allowed to be let out. All the things that we've done to protect ourselves by shoving it in, ignoring it, just avoiding it. Now there's an audience that seems to be willing to listen to all our truths, and it's all coming out in droves. So right now, there's so many things, so many factors going on for you. And for me, and what I want to implore everyone to do, especially for looking after themselves, is to take it one step at a time and try to, before you even start healing, you have to understand what is my pain? What is my trauma? What am I feeling? What are the things that I want to heal from? Without identifying that, we're gonna prematurely start the healing process because we haven't identified what it is that I am hurting from.
Because really, like, I was surprised that as different clips came out. So George Floyd, that was heartbreaking. And then there were the students, the Spelman and Morehouse students, in being tased in their cars. That was heartbreaking. And every time I broke, every single time I saw this Black body being violated, it triggered. And for people who are not Black, who are on this call, that's what happens, because what we know of these people, what we know of the people that in some form or fashion they were targeted because they were Black. And I can't separate myself from them in that way. I'm not going to say that they are just those people on the road and it just happened to them because they're in the States. I was driving along the Harrow Road in Cane Rose. I had no makeup on and I had my Mini Cooper and I was stopped. And I was, and I'm thinking, why are you guys stopping me? And literally, I don't think they understood. They didn't know who they were talking to. Let's be honest, people. But actually, I felt so I felt violated because I hadn't been speeding. And so that's why when we see things like that, it is triggering. And for my Black people, I am saying acknowledge that trigger, acknowledge the grieving process, acknowledge the hurt and the trauma, because what we know is that these people have been targeted because of the color of their skin. And so it is just a matter of circumstance that we are not them.
Yes, yes. And those people have been targeted for the color of your skin. And for people that are not within the community, it may be difficult to grasp, because for people that are not within the community, it's an isolated incident. It is in no way, shape, or form connected to you. Now, for people within this community, what we do recognize is when we do see things like that, there's a natural kinship that comes from that. There is that could be me, that could have been me, or the triggering that you touch on, which is a huge factor of trauma, is that it triggers you to your own personal experiences. Something triggers you to your own lived personal experiences. You start taking it back to when I was in secondary school, or when I went for this job, or the banter that I experienced from colleagues, or the police, your relationship, your interaction with police, not only from what happened, but what you felt would happen. Mm-hmm. That innate fear that comes in automatically due to those little things, those are all factors of your own personal experiences of trauma. As we are seeing George Floyd lay on the floor, looking at us, pleading with us, we universally felt connected to him in that moment. And some may experience guilt, some may experience anger, some may experience just utter sadness. But in that moment, we were all unified in, no, we can't take this anymore. And from there, it seems almost an unstoppable force right now, where all our collective voices are saying very similar things. And what I find powerful, especially in therapy, is we're all doing online therapy without realizing it. We're all sharing our stories. We're all talking about how we were impacted. We're all trying to explain to others, this happened to me. And I compare it to rape victims. This happened to me. See me, hear me. Do not look at me or question, well, what were you doing there? Maybe it wasn't anything to do with race. It's similar to talking to a rape victim and saying, what were you wearing? We wouldn't say that, would we? To a woman that's just been raped and say, what were you wearing? What time of night was it? What did you do? So right now, a lot of Black people around the world are feeling validated for their stories, for their experiences. And for a lot of people, this is the first time they're being seen outside the community. And interestingly, I was talking to a colleague of mine recently, and we spoke, and a lot of people think because I'm a psychotherapist, I do not feel, or I'm not impacted by certain things. And my colleague was impacted by everything that's going on around right now. And we spoke about how sometimes Black people don't even talk to each other about their experiences of racism, because it is an unspoken, lived experience amongst us. It's nothing new to us. So we learn to move on from it so quickly without addressing it, which builds up more issues down the line.
So validation. I know that's what I needed. I needed someone to hear me. And I'm lucky, right? I'm the chair of the Black British Business Awards. You think, boy, she's if I'm not validated, who is? But that validation in regards to hearing that, being able to articulate my personal experience with my people in a safe space. So I want you guys to identify your safe spaces. I do have, shout out to Sonia, shout out to Zara, shout out to, there are some women that I have been speaking to Ronke. I've been speaking to them every single day because they are my safe space where I can cuss about things, where I can cry and moan about things. Yeah. And so was such a key part of my healing, and a key part of my, I don't know, just treatment plan, I guess. It's part of my treatment plan. That's what they are. They're my treatment plan. I wanted to point out, thank you guys so much. I see you all joining. Thank you so much for the condolences that I see. coming through. I really, really appreciate it. And I didn't say that. What I try to do is just share my experience so that other people can feel that they can share their experiences. So this is not for, I don't want to center on that at all, because I know that so many of us, in terms of the BAME population and COVID, we're all feeling it right now. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that there's context to this. Thank you so much for joining us. And please we are monitoring the chats and we are looking for your questions. So if you do have questions that you want to ask myself or Nathaniel, then please pop them in. We are ready to take it. But thank you so much for your condolences as well. And we're going to keep on moving because I've collated some questions that we're getting online. Okay. Some of them a bit more light, some of them a bit more heavy.
I'm ready. Let's get started.
Yes. So I feel a bit guilty. So today there are protests that have been planned. There have been amazing protests, huge amounts of people that are in central London. They're happening globally. And, I'm not there. I'm here on the phone with you. We're listening on our phones. And it feels like, I don't know, there's something in regards to COVID. I know there's a lot of kind of unspoken guilt for kind of people, whether it be Black or white, that, am I doing enough? And that's coming from me. I'm Black British Business Awards girl. And I'm feeling like, maybe I should be there. Maybe I should be there. And then I was like, Mel, can you even handle that? And so, what kind of, how do we work through that? How do we work through not feeling like we've done enough?
Well, I guess I think we call that guilt, right? And there's an element of guilt within trauma in itself, the guilt in which we may have invited onto ourselves, but that's going deep into elements of trauma and PTSD. But right now, there seems to be a wave of, what are you doing? We are all seeming to be challenging each other. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I guess for me as a therapist, my focus is always on my clients, first of all, and in their well-being. What are you doing to heal, first of all? If you're on that plane and the plane has got turbulence, the air stewardess is telling you, first of all, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help your children, your family, whoever it may be. So right now, I would encourage everyone to put the oxygen mask on themselves, first and foremost. Before we can move forward into what can we do elsewhere, we need to listen to our inner voice. What do we need? Right now, from speaking to you just briefly just now, there's a lot of pain there. And there's a lot of you trying to almost sort and sieve through the pain. So you going elsewhere to say, okay, I'm going to do this for others, for my people, without addressing what you need, may be counterproductive. We need to recognize where we are within ourselves. What can I do right now? And right now, I just need to sit down, maybe cry. I just need to be upset. I maybe need to shout. I need to voice. I may need to write something online. These are all components of being supportive. These are all what you just said in the first 5 minutes about sharing your truth, without you realizing it, is shining a light into other people's darkness. It's giving other people maybe the power to be able to say, okay, maybe I can be vulnerable too. So for me, that act in itself is an act of love, is an act of power and strength, and also an act of communal support to others. So do not diminish or minimize what we are all doing individually, collectively. It's all part of our own journey to help others. All right? It's all part of the tapestry, I like to call it.
Right? It's tough. It really is. It's tough because we know there's so much to be done, and there's real kind of what can we do with real impact and change, and it's constantly on my brain. It's constantly, and I know I have evidence of what I've done, but I know that right now I can't. It feels like I can't do very much because I'm empty. There are actually, first I'd like to say condolences, Elizabeth. Thank you for telling us about your mom, and I'm so sorry that you've lost her, and I'm so sorry that you were restricted and you couldn't see her either. And so hopefully we will be able to come together today and then give you a little bit of relief, because the guilt is real. I feel you so much, Elizabeth. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm.
I guess the problem is, right? Like, let's, just to kind of keep it real, like we, I sometimes I just like, so last night I was like, what, I just want to sit back and watch Queer Eye. Because Queer Eye, there's a new season on Netflix. This is not a Netflix post. They don't pay me. But I'm just saying, Queer Eye is this nice little show that basically it's 5 gay men who take on kind of the makeovers of people's lives, homes. But it always gives me joy, because there's always like, there's a woman with a dog grooming studio, or, there's always a happy ending. And I needed happy endings, but I felt bad because I was like, okay, you know what? I see there's stuff blowing up on Twitter. Every time I look at this news screen, there's so much. And I literally just wanted to put myself in a bubble. So, how do we balance being aware and being informed with actually switching off?
Well, there's a phrase that I use that makes me smile, right? It's called "look after your mentals." Right? It sounds very quirky, sounds very fun, but it's so important. Mentals, your mentals.
Okay. Oh, mentals, not mentos. Okay, correct.
No, mentals. No. Look after your mentals. All right. So for me, it's out in answering that question is recognizing actually this is detrimental to my mental health right now. I do not need, or I cannot watch this news feed right now. Mm-hmm. What I need right now is for me to go and have a cup of tea, read a book, or just soothe myself. Mindfulness, sitting down, watching something, as you described, Queer Eye, each of their own and all of that. I think I recall Queer Eye very many years ago. I didn't know that we were doing it, where, I'm all of that. Yeah, so wherever makes those cheekbones go up, you do it. All right. So that's how you recognize for yourself. I do not need to be in a constant barrage of news that, in essence, it says this exactly the same thing, just in different cities, just in different countries, right? We need to pause for our own mental health and don't feel guilty to turn it off. Anxiety is so real, and everything we're allowing into ourselves, what we feed ourselves, not only physically with the food we consume, the drink we consume, but also the information we consume into our soul, into our spirit, is so important. So think of it this way: you're not going to be chugging down a gallon of fat, right? Because, oh no, this is terrible for me. This is not good for me. I'm going to feel sick. Now think of it mentally. What you are consuming, how is it making you feel? What is it leaving you with? When you do turn it off before you go to sleep, how long does it take you for you to actually cleanse your mind and your spirit of all of that continuous information of negativity? So you are basically saying, you know what? I'm going to watch something that's going to trigger me. I'm going to continue being triggered for the whole day. And I'm going to be crying in the evening. And then the next day, I'm going to do it all over again. Right? So what I'm suggesting is recognize for yourself what you can and what you cannot tolerate. So look after your individual mentals. Mm-hmm. So that way you can gauge, no, I don't need to see this anymore.
Okay. I don't need to see this. But I think Chioma makes a really great point. So thank you so much, Chioma. She says, in our community, why do we not engage in therapy or counseling? Because therapy saved her life. Thank you, Chioma, for that declaration.
That is a topic that will never end, it seems, because it's a topic I've spoken about many years ago, a topic I've spoken about a month ago, and within different communities, we've all got our own cultural understanding of certain things. Within the Black community, right? It could be the African community. I'll speak on the African community because I have a direct connection to that. Speaking about your truths outside of a specific circle is frowned upon. Is looked at as you're washing your dirty laundry in public. It makes sense. But also there's an element of mental health that is not spoken about, because of certain superstitious connections to it. you have lost your mind. It may be the shaman in the village that has been summoned to affect you because the village, your village people are against your family. There's so many different ways in which it's looked at, right? And we in the West, we look at it as, okay, you know what? I need to service my mind. I need to take it for an MOT. I need to service it. I need to ensure it's roadworthy. I need to maintain and look after it for it to perform at its optimum level. So we have that understanding of it. But at the same time, we need to have an understanding of why others may not share that. Maybe they haven't been exposed to our understanding of what therapy can bring.
That's the thing. Like, I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. So, you guys know who my friends are. You see me hang out with them. And every single one of the, these are probably the most powerful Black women in the UK. Every single one of them has a life coach, performance coach, therapist, trainer. Like, it is a constant, kind of walk through self-improvement. I know that both my parents are health professionals, particularly in psychiatric health. My mother worked for, she's years in psychiatric health, and my father died of dementia. So, we're all, mom, it's big, like it's big in terms of mental health in our squad, in our family. And it's also big in regards to therapists, psychotherapy, psychiatry. Like it's no joke. And so I encourage you. I really encourage you. Like, my friends are great. My girls are great. Don't get me wrong. I love them and I will come and cuss with them every single day, all day. Mm-hmm. But there's something nice about paying someone to listen to my ish. I'm not even gonna lie. It really is. There is something beautiful about it. Like, there's something where I'm just like, they will be totally dedicated to solving for that 40 minutes, for that 45 minutes, to walking me through my stuff. I don't feel selfish. I don't feel like I'm putting it on them. Actually, that is their purpose in my life. It's extremely liberating. And when I go and speak to my friends, like my real day-to-day friends, I'm not bringing all of this angst, because I actually have a place to sort out the angst. And it has helped in terms of growth and self-awareness. And I have to say that most of the leaders that I know have some sort of feedback vehicle, whether it be in terms of coaching or therapy, so that they can have they're building that level of self-awareness.
Yeah. Well, so, you're blessed.
It's funny that it's seen as a sign of weakness by some, because I'm not going to lie, the most wealthy and powerful people in this country have it. So I was like, we got to flip it. And they're quite vocal about it, right? Like, I know Karen, I don't know if she's watching right now, girl. Yeah, I'm not going to French you, but she introduced me to my performance coach. Mm-hmm. So I have a performance coach who says, are you performing? Are you a high performance machine right now? Mm-hmm. Or just, and he's having him help me.
Well, I think there's also another elephant in the room in regards to talking about therapy in the Black community, right? The history of therapy is a European-based, white, middle-class based. And a lot of Black people, especially in the West or elsewhere, having the socioeconomic power to support paying someone to do certain things that you in the Black community are told you should be able to do yourself. Mm-hmm. You should be able to survive yourself. You should be able to cope with the barrage of everyday issues you're dealing with. That's what you're supposed to be able to do. And some may look at it, and I understand this, as a luxury to be able to pay someone to do that. Hold on a minute, I've got to pay for someone's school fees. I've got to pay for dinner. I've got to ensure that they've got clothes. I've got to pay for rent. I've got to pay for this. Pay to talk to someone to tell me what exactly. And so we have to be aware that it is not always accessible. Not everyone is going to be able to afford me as a psychotherapist. I need to be aware of that. And within the Black community as well, especially seemingly all over the world, majority of Black people are not in the socioeconomic category to be able to afford therapy, talking therapy, and seeing someone to be able to speak to. So we need to be also aware that that could be an onset of racism and the effects of it, that there are certain things that will be so beneficial. If I want to be the greatest footballer ever, I'm gonna be trained into it.
Exactly.
If people that are more successful than I am, I've got therapists. Hold on a minute, that's not a sign of weakness. However, it is perceived as that. But for me, my job is not to say, well, it shouldn't be like that, but it's to understand why it's like that in the first place, and then be able to encourage others. By this conversation, this is a perfect way of dealing with it. That there are two people here that are talking so openly about therapy and how beneficial it is, and there's so many other therapists out there that look like me and look like yourself as well, that you'll be able to have that connection to, that you may not feel connected to another therapist that may look a different way. But we'll touch on that later.
Well, I think that hit a real point because, first of all, Gabriella Shillingford, boy, it's not just me sharing, it's a whole lot of people. Gabriella's like, there's a wave of release of pain from Black people right now who have suppressed years and years of unhappiness and anguish and racism. Generations of us, things we have forced ourselves to forget. I find myself remembering every memory vividly. Mentally, it is affecting us, and we are all fighting to maintain stable health. And then Talja says, agree. That's such a big no-no in the African community, and it's so detrimental to our health. There's always been a stigma about therapy in the Black community. It's seen as a sign of weakness. That's from Dion. Many in the Black community are in denial that they need therapy. Many disrespect you and change the way they treat you if you admit to seeing a therapist. In the end, it's easier to keep it to yourself. Yes, it's Black Minds Matter is a new initiative provided for those who cannot afford therapy. So raised over $230K so far. Thank you so much, Martha, for sharing that.
Brilliant.
And thank you so much. But some of my students from the uni from Holtz have logged in. So sorry for your loss. Thank you for that. I thank you so much for everyone contributing. What Dennis has asked, kind of what are the characteristics you should look for in a coach? And I'm going to come back to that, Dennis, because there are some points that Nathaniel has gone through that I just want to drill down on just a little bit. How do you let people know that you're going through something? So most of us work in our workspaces, our workforces are not Black kind of job. It's not Black is not the majority. Yes, the Black British Business Awards, my team, that we kind of automatically already get people are going through stuff. But how do we address it on our jobs, the trauma, the feelings that we're going through? How would we go to our bosses or our peers and our colleagues in a way that lets them know, but then also doesn't make even more trouble for us?
Well, what I would say to that is, with all the for all the employers within the audience right now, you will be very tone deaf if you're not aware of the wave that's going on around the world right now. The pandemic that has been going on for so long, but right now is shoved in your face, and you may look elsewhere, but it's still going to be there, because usually when you turn left, you've avoided it. But right now, you can't avoid the wave that's going on right now. And I implore all employers out there to look after your staff, because you've got a duty of care to your staff.
Yep.
If your staff has lost a loved one, you've got special leave that may be given. If your staff has endured some physical pain, broken a leg, you know what? You don't need to come in today. Commiserations. We're going to send you a card, and everybody's going to sign it. Sign it, get well soon, or whatever it is. Right now, your staff, your members within your organization, Black members, are experiencing something I haven't experienced in my lifetime, which is we are all now feeling so brazen and free. And something Gabriella spoke about that just connected me with and what the question she asked, the statement she made was about right now, they are remembering things more. When I see clients and we go through history, and usually some of these clients have forgotten so many things in their childhood. And when we're exploring this, all of a sudden, the next session and the session after that, their memory that they've always claimed, oh, I've got a terrible memory, I can't remember this or that, comes back. It's sharper. They can remember smells. They can remember what song may have been playing. what the clothes they were wearing, where they were in their house. And what is happening right now is we are awakening those suppressed thoughts and feelings and memories because we feel like my clients do in a session. I feel safe enough to be able to say this in this space. And the world has now become that space that we feel safe enough to actually say it. We feel safe enough to actually maybe take our mask, you know, the masks that we all seemingly wear when we're talking to people that may not look like us. We feel safe enough to take it off and say, listen, this is me. This is what I'm experiencing. So if you are feeling like that and you are surrounded at work, I encourage you to have that conversation, either with your immediate line manager, or if you don't feel comfortable enough within that, maybe HR, and speak to HR about maybe there needs to be an initiative within your workplace that recognizes it. An email to all staff by the director will be so powerful right now to say, hi, everyone. I understand what's going on in the world right now. If you do feel you want to speak about it or whatever, have an open and safe space for your employees to feel comfortable enough that they're working for an organization that sees them, that sees what they may be going through when they're not at work, that impacts their performance level. If you want to be selfish about it, be selfish. Their performance level is going to suffer if this is not addressed, if you don't look after them. So you look after them, you listen to them, they will perform more. They will feel that they're supported more at work. So if the employers want to look at it from a totally selfish point of view, do so, because it's going to benefit you in the end, because your staff are going to feel more supported, more seen and heard, and hopefully they want to work harder for you.
Because when we found out that my father was dying, so that was approximately 4 weeks ago, the next day I even though he hadn't passed away yet, I sent a note to my kind of close people that I was working on a project with and my line manager at Accenture. And I'm going to call them out because I have good things to say about them. So the response was immediate. They're saying, we're so sorry. And, my boss, he called me. He's like, look, I think you should take some time off. Like, I know you're gangsta and everything. You're going to keep it moving. And I was just like, okay, cool. So the response was immediate. And then on top of that, there's an expectation kind of management that goes on there when it means that I may not be performing at my high performance best. And so that's where I protected myself again. And I think that for my Black employees, you have to protect yourself right now, because right now, with all of the trauma that we're speaking of, very much so, there's a likelihood that you may not be performing your best. You may be entirely distracted. You may be online looking at Black bodies being violated and you can't even help yourself. You may be going back into your memories and saying, okay, well, this is what happened to me. You may be talking to your friends more on the phone because, quite frankly, we can't connect the way we usually can connect. And so you're just reaching out for that connection of people who can validate the experiences that you're going through. And all of that impacts work performance. And so I really advise you, if you're in any kind of comfortable place, and I realize that everyone's not, you have to let the people that look after your performance in the organization, that are looking out for your performance in the organization, you got to let them know that you are going through something. And so I let them know, hey, my father is about to pass, and I don't know exactly what that means. I may travel, I may not. We didn't know in terms of quarantine what was going to be allowed. And then with the in regards to George Floyd and when the protests really started kicking off last week, again, I sent them another note and I was like, okay, you might have been able to tell by the title, but I'm going to be a little bit distracted this week. So I usually, I just basically booked it off because I knew, for me, what my level of commitment, what I knew I was going to have to do in terms of, go on the BBC and talk radio and all kinds of stuff. I was like, nah, don't do that. It is about expectation management. So I really advise you to speak to the people that are not only your boss, but the people who are looking out for your performance. So it may be a colleague who's looking for that report from you. Then you got to let them know that, I'm not on best form right now. I will be, because we're a resilient people. Come on now. But we're not necessarily on our best this week. And that is so much better than having people kind of, and we're going to talk about the tiptoeing around, in terms of our white colleagues, but you need to let them know what is going on with your life. And it doesn't have to be pejorative. It doesn't have to be, I'm blaming you for everything that we've gone through, but you could be short and sweet. I was like, hey guys, just let you know, my father is really unwell. The doctor called, my father is really unwell. He's near his end of days. And so, yeah, just wanted to let you know, just in case, I may have to travel and I may not be at the office as much. Done. One line, one sentence. Don't go all don't do that. Don't do that. They'll call you and you can talk about it and talk through it, but that's all they need from you, email wise. Woo-wee. Rob John is like, yes, brother. I explained I'm feeling like an abused child right now. Thank you so much, Rob John. Yvette, yes, I agree. We are suffering a form of post-traumatic stress. Talking to my tribe has helped, but what next? How do we affect change? Change is the next seminar. It's not this seminar. This seminar is about just looking inward a bit and having a level of self-awareness and growing, Yvette, from this. But we will be covering it. Bob, transparency is so important, and finding true allies to support is critical. LinkedIn user, who given his name, but as a result of deep trust and confidence, how do we explore whether a therapist understands racism, structural racism, and cultural issues? How do you train, educate employees on microaggressions and tone policing? Whoa, that is, and so you know what? That is a great question, and we are going to have. Sorry, in the beginning, I made the announcement that this today is a Sunday session of us looking inwards and able to heal and grow inwards so that we're revved up and girded up for the week. We are going to have another session in regards to white allies. Where do we go from here? So that's another session and it's specifically about, okay, there are a lot of white people who are emailing me right now, calling me right now, texting me right now saying, hey, Mel, are you okay? And I'm like, whoa, how do I deal with that? whoa, it's a lot right now. But we'll talk about that later on in the call. We're going to talk about that. So training, educating employees on microaggressions, we're not going to talk about in this call, but we will have another one, I promise, where we can talk about this. This is just about how do we move on? How do we just, hold tight right now, because we are feeling traumatized. We're not changing the world yet today. This is not a change the world session. Rob John, here we go. Question for you. Nathaniel, I remember getting made redundant after my father died. I was put on performance review after returning to England after burying my grandfather. Do you think the organizations in the UK are really ready or care, especially the civil service? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people are not ready for change. Doesn't mean that we should not demand or drive for change either. A lot of times the question that a lot of people have, I'm not ready to be a dad, I'm not ready to be a mom, but that baby is coming anyway, right? But we adjust and we ensure that we prepare ourselves for that change. Whether your employers are ready for change or not, I guess for you, it's for you to drive that home, to introduce that, to demand it, to work towards it. Tell, as you stated very eloquently, have that conversation with who may be responsible and state, this is where I'm at right now. Similarly to if I've had an accident, this is where I'm at right now. Based on this injury, I'm unable to perform at my optimum. Based on what is going on right now, this is how it's affected me. And I would appreciate your support in this period. I will try my hardest for it not to affect my work, but inevitably it will. And I'm not the only one going through it. And you may not know it, but by virtue of you having that conversation, you are opening the door for others that look like you to be able to walk through that same door. So you are a gate opener.
Exactly. And hence the reason why I'm having this on LinkedIn, guys, that it's not just on, a little private group session or Zoom. I want you to feel validated. I want you to be able to say that the Black British Business Awards chair with the 50 sponsors that we have, that are most of your employers, they're talking, like, this is what we're talking about. And so you feel validated in a way to say that this is an experience that that's happening, that is collectively happening. And so that's why I want to make sure that you have as much access. It will be available, it's recorded, and it will be available for you to distribute. And I want you to be able to feel that you are part of a community and draw on that community, because that's the question. I think that was a question. How do you support employees when everyone is working from home due to COVID-19? My mother lives in Canada, and when she didn't come to the Black British Business Awards last year, but she still supported my backside. So if you have employees, my team, when my father died, I love stationery. So my team, they sent me a notebook with my name inscribed on it. They sent me beautiful flowers because I love flowers. And it was, and they were supporting me. And I have a card, I'm looking at it, says, thinking of you. And when I returned back to the office, they didn't kind of skirt around the topic. They're like, Mel, I'm so sorry for your loss. Right, look me in the eye, the Zoom eye, the Microsoft Teams eye, and said that. And so that's the way that the first thing that you can do to support people. It may not be reading all of the resources on white fragility and white pain and all of that. It's literally just about acknowledging and validating someone's experience and pain. And so if people are going through stuff, all you need to do is say, hey, I got you. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. For people that may feel uncomfortable, right? And one of my sayings is, if it doesn't challenge you, you're not growing from this. You're not learning from this, all right? Prepare to feel uncomfortable. Prepare to feel challenged. For me, for most of my clients, the best thing I could do for my client, the simplest and easiest thing for me to do is to see them. That is all to start with. I see you. I hear you. And when I say I see you, it doesn't mean I fully understand everything that's going on with you, but I see that you are struggling. I see that you are in pain. I see that the world right now is going up in flames due to something I may not have been aware of. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what your truth is. As simply as just addressing your employees, to address it, not to put your head in the sand, but to address it. Mm-hmm. You know the power that would have on those people that have felt they needed to wear a mask to work. They needed to tone down their natural self for work. And to say that I see you will make a brilliant start. So for all the employees out there not knowing what to do, especially people working from home, even when the office is open, they're working from home mentally. Because what you see is not what they are like at home. You see in the facade.
Yeah. It's really, right now, I encourage you all to just look at it on an individual level. There's going to be time and room for us to look on a systemic level. But if you are managing people, or if you are being managed and you are part of a team, then I would encourage you to speak to the people who you report in with, as well as employers, making sure that you acknowledge what your individual line report is doing and how they are doing. It doesn't have to be a big, long thing. Sometimes it's, because I can't lie, my email just went off the chain. Like these last few days where my friends are like, hey, Mel, are you okay? Hey, Mel, are you okay? And so I guess that brings me to another question. So there are a lot of well-meaning white people in my life. So my closest friends, I haven't gotten any text from them because, quite frankly, I'm talking to them anyway, and they already know what's up. And it seems like it's a watershed moment. Mm-hmm. There's a watershed moment for Black people, white people, all people to say, where do you stand on this issue? And wherever you end up standing will impact the kind of relationship I have with you going forward. So I know that for some of the people in my life, they think it's definitely about all lives matter. They think that this is, it doesn't, yeah, okay, fine. He was standing on his neck. He's kneeling on his neck for so long, but that doesn't mean that looting is okay. That means that the protests, we are in the middle of COVID. So why are you protesting? You guys are being really, really selfish right now. It means that, yeah, you've made this big claim towards diversity and inclusion, the company that I work for, but then I don't see anyone in the senior management who is a person of color. I don't see any Black people in government. So what's up? So I feel like there is, for me, I know as a Black activist, there is something about where do I go from here with my white peers and colleagues. And I know that that's come up. Pilar says, how do you approach a subject with people you spend money with when they can see what's going on and they seem oblivious? You almost feel like they don't deserve your money as they are not for your people. Hey, like, how do we navigate this kind of stuff? Like, what do you think, Nathaniel?
Well, I think if a woman is mistreating me and she's someone that she's my partner and she's mistreating me, or I find that she ignores or she decides to ignore my pain, or she minimizes my pain, I have a choice to make in regards to whether I show and give my love to her. So you touched on about dealing with it on an individual level initially before we go in the big, massive collective. It's time for you to look at your relationships. And that I describe it as relationships because when we start looking at it as a racial, them and us and everything else, I don't find that productive. I find that as too much labeling, too much generalization. So let's personalize it to the intimate relationships. A relationship with a colleague, a relationship with your barber, your hairdresser. Those are intimate relationships. And you decide, actually, I do not feel I'm getting what I want from this. So I'm going to take myself away from this type of relationship. So if you are spending money in a place that you do not feel supports or sees something that is so fundamental to your identity, then you've got a decision to make where you take your money to. If you've seen a therapist, and I've had clients that I wasn't their first therapist, but when they came to see me, they felt free. And these are what they was anecdotal report of they feeling free. They felt seen even before I started speaking. Even before we finished our first session, is they felt seen. They felt they didn't need to explain certain things to me because they felt I understood already. Now, there is wealth in diversity. There is wealth in feeling that other people can see you and they can connect to you. So if you do feel that your colleagues may not be understanding or disregarding what you feel is so powerful and so true, there's an element, there's an element of responsibility that you have to yourself, first of all, which is, do I walk away from it? Or am I also have a responsibility to communicate initially? Because what is going on right now is a lot of people are canceling people. Well, they haven't posted something on their social media. Automatic, ergo, they're racist. They haven't said anything to me, ergo, they're racist, right? So what we're doing there, we're throwing the baby out of the bathwater. Have we openly communicated to someone that we care greatly about? This is what's going on for me right now. And I appreciate your support or your views on it. Because we have to also be empathic enough to, if I was in a situation where I felt I don't know what's going on, my opinion or my views of it are so limited, I feel me even opening my mouth may make me seem like a fool, or I'm scared I may hurt other people by asking a mere question. Huh? When you say Black Lives Matter, I don't get it. What does that even mean? Because there are a lot of people, let's be honest here, that may not understand it. And we can explain it. And if they choose not to understand it, then we have a decision to make to state that, okay.
Exactly.
You know, but at the same time, I want us to be able to communicate with each other, black and white. If you do not understand my position, because we haven't had a dialogue about it, let's have a dialogue about it. If we had that dialogue, then I can lead that conversation understanding, in a better position for me to know whether this person is an ally or a foe.
Exactly.
Let's have that conversation to start it off with before we throw everybody else out there, because race is an uncomfortable subject.
The thing is, like, I'm not gonna lie, for some, like, say for relationships that I've invested in, for relationships that are part of a whole. So for example, I work at a large organization and it may be one employee. I can see me doing that, having that conversation. But I'm not gonna lie, I am, and you guys know this, Black British Business Awards girl, I am hardcore about this stuff. I'm also hardcore about it in regards to gender. If I don't think that you are operating in my interests, the way that I work for my money, there is no way I'm giving it to people who don't have my interests in mind. So back to my brother who asked the question about the therapy, how do you, in terms of therapy, getting a therapist that understands race, culture, like everything that we're going through right now. Brother man, I'm going to tell you exactly. Pull up. Ask the question right in the beginning. Like, you know what? Organizations do it all the time, right? Like people, when we have an RFP, I'm a consultant. So when we receive a request for a proposal, they're like, yo, what are your diversity numbers like? Who's at the top of your organization? How are you going to ensure that you're doing the right thing? There's diversity and inclusion on your teams. People ask. So quite frankly, it is up to you when you're looking for a therapist or when you are looking for a coach, trainer to address Pilar's question. And, if you don't see evidence of what's up on their page somewhere, then pull up. It is time for us, whether any underrepresented people, for us to just consider consider with value what we create, and that the money that we make is of value. That disposable income that we have to spend our money on things, that is of value, and that means that you shouldn't have to. I don't want you to have to spend your money on people that actually don't show that you exist, that don't know that you exist, that aren't considering you as in your full identity. Walk away from them. Remember back in the day, Mother Care had no mothers on the board. That makes no sense to me. So why would I spend money there? It makes no sense. So for me, like, why would I? Might as well just go and buy shares in the KKK. Why would I do that? It makes no sense. I'm not saying that people are the KKK people. I'm just saying that across the board, what we have to do, that you work so hard for your money, and your money in this kind of capitalist world that we live in, that also speaks. And so, you know what? Call it out. There are things that are important to you, values and belief systems that are dear to you, that you hold dear to your heart. Do not just throw it away on people who are not aligned to your interests. So there is a lot of organizations, to Johnny's point. I wish organizations understood that knee-jerk, superficial responses and statements are in themselves traumatizing right now. You're right. They are triggering. When I see, I see some organizations making comments and I was like, oh, is that what you thought last month when you did this, and this? Oh, is that what you thought when, so I do understand where you're coming from, Johnny Walker. But my friend Johnny Walker, I want to make sure that you know that there is a circle of life that you have to kind of put around yourself, where these organizations aren't real people. And sometimes they're not your friends. And so they don't care about you. And I want you to not care about them as much as they don't care about you. Because I'm not saying they don't care about you because they're not real people, right? Like they're not, you can't have a relationship with an organization. An organization is a lot of people, PR, branding, CEOs, CFOs, And so what I'm saying is I want you to armor yourself up a little bit. Not because it's your fault, but I'm just saying that because they have no interest in you as an individual per se, then I don't want you to let them hurt you and let you be traumatized off of a corporate PR statement that had nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? That's so, yeah. What do you think, Nathaniel? Am I going crazy on that one?
Well,
I feel kind of bad about that.
It's, talking about looking after your mental health is where do I feel comfortable at? Look at what is beneficial for you. What environment fits in with what you require, what you need, right? You have power There is power going on in this conversation. There's power there to be had with everybody else rising up and saying, no, this is not right. And not only this is not right, I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to stand it anymore. No more right now. So that, to me, there's power in there. Recognize your own power in having that conversation. When we, part of the work we do in therapy is also looking at different ways in which a client can communicate. Assertive communication is looked at, or as I like to call it, empathic assertive communication, which is, I understand where you're coming from. That's the empathic element of it. Now, this is what I feel, this is what I believe, and this is what I would like for myself moving forward. I would appreciate if we can have that conversation in order for you to be able to accommodate that request. That's you being assertive in what you want, what you require. Those jokes, they're not going to fly anymore. Look at your hair, let me touch, it's not going to fly anymore. Those, my name is Goriola, can I call you Gary? That's not going to fly anymore. Okay? So those are the kind of things that we have a responsibility for ourselves to be able to have that conversation with certain people. If we are uncomfortable by it, I understand it. We are uncomfortable. Change is not going to come if we stay in our comfort zone. We need to challenge those things in order for us to see change.
And when I've had to have those uncomfortable conversations, I do have them with not only my squad, but people kind of like target people. So meaning people who are kind of, they're similar to the audience, so that I can test my messaging with them, because I don't expect it for me to get it right the first time. So I may need a little practice. So I do think, so if there are boundaries, what I don't want you to do is walk into your workforce without setting your own boundaries in place. We really, I'm not saying that work is a hostile environment, but sometimes it is. And that means that you do have to have certain, you do have to set those boundaries and let people know what's okay and what's not okay. And you'll have to do it in a somewhat private fashion as well, because it never really works out. There are usually, in large organizations, for those who work for large organizations, there is an employee network that specifically is for BAME people in the UK, or kind of Black people or Asian people. There are organizations in the UK, particularly, I know that where we work with them quite closely to make sure that they have the resources that will be able to support you, that you don't feel like you're standing alone in your organization, that you don't feel like you're putting yourself at risk in your organization. And so I encourage you to also reach out to them, because last week we had a seminar from the Black British Business Awards, and it was all the employee network leaders. It was like 80 of them. And they, and it was just, how do we support our people during these times? That was the topic. So you're not alone in your organization, okay? Wow, there's a lot. And Elizabeth, I see your question, and that is going to be one of our final questions. So don't you worry about that. Thank you so much for addressing it, Miss Elizabeth. I'm just going to go to Rob John. Based on the ratio of us in the workforce, do you not think we can systematically be removed, especially with a looming recession? I believe many of us are unaware how few in number we are in some spaces. I thoroughly agree, Rob John. I try to keep online with media, and I try to keep up to date. And this morning I read a popular newspaper that usually comes out on Sundays, and excuse me, at my last count, there were 2,000. There was an article about the protests, and at my last count, there were 2,700 comments that negated the process and in some form or fashion, kind of Black Lives Matter. And I foolishly woke up this morning. That was the first thing that I read, and it was like a car crash. I just kept on reading and reading and reading. On social media channels, you'll find, and LinkedIn as well, particularly, you'll find that the comments are quite measured, quite tempered, because it's associated with someone's profile. However, when I was looking at the comments on that newspaper, I thought I was going to weep. Everything about that newspaper and its comments said that this was just this is a big bother. And in the middle of COVID, we have gotten it wrong as Black people, and we are being extremely selfish. And the world is real. You're so right, Rob John. And it seems sometimes we're fighting amongst ourselves. We're fighting with white liberals. We're fighting with, kind of lefties, and well-meaning white people who may have gotten it wrong, when quite frankly, there is a very firm line and divide for people who actually just not even don't care, but think that it's wrong what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that I need you guys to be aware that your social media feeds, the way that you receive the news, is not, it actually creates a bubble of things that you would like to hear, people you'd like to hear from. And so I don't know if because I have lots of VPNs and everything. So that's why I log in like stealth, all kinds of other different ways to all other kinds of different publications, just so I know that, okay, this is what my people are saying and we're all on the same page because we're all kind of the same, because that's what social media does for us. There's a whole other world out there that is the majority of the UK that may not understand what's happening in this conversation, as well as what was started in the US with George Floyd. And we have to be very careful of that. We have to, careful for ourselves. So it's great when we're seeing John Boyega give an amazing speech, and Anthony Joshua, we're seeing stars, we're seeing these numbers in London. We're seeing these numbers in all kinds of cities, and it's beautiful and it's unprecedented, but the backlash is so real. Yeah. I've never seen comments like that in a Times or Telegraph article before, and I thought I was going to weep. It's a whole other world out there. The trolling is real. That's why I had this session. That's why I had it on LinkedIn, because I'm scared of trolls, people. Like, it's a deep thing. How do we escape? How do we escape the trolls? Thank you, Sonia Meggie, for joining us. Spot on. I believe many of us are unaware how few number we are in the spaces. Thank you, Rob John. And thank you, Deidre Joyce Smith, for the article that you shared with us. Elizabeth comes to one of the points that Nathaniel and I knew we were going to have to address. Kids. So how do you address this issue with young kids? I'm a believer of not sweeping under the carpet, but where is the line? And how do you do it without scaring the living daylights out of them? Nathaniel, how have you explained it to your children? What's going on here?
Well, to speak to children, I believe honesty is the best policy. And we, the same way that when you're going to watch a movie, you're not going to let your kids watch I think in America it's a XXX or whatever movie, or rated R or whatever it may be they do over there. I'll talk about it in England, when you've got the universal, the 12, the 15 and the 18 rating. So you look at it and say, okay, is this film suitable for my child? If it isn't, then my child is not watching this. Mm-hmm. What is going on around right now? Is this suitable for my child? Is it necessary for my child to know about what's going on in the world? My answer would be yes. Now, how you deliver that, you can deliver it at the rated 18 level, or you can deliver it at the, parental guidance level. We're all depending on your child's age, level, and maturity and understanding it. That's how you determine. So there's not a one size fits all. Say to your children this, because your child may be 5, your child may be 12, your child may be 10. Based on your own child, your child, you'll be able to address it, but not addressing it because you feel the world is, I want my children to grow up not seeing color. I want my children to be colorblind, which is such a beautiful, beautiful, very, very sickly tone, as I say it. Because what you are telling your child is, I want my child to go out there and not see Melanie as a woman. I want my child to go out there and not see your identity, your history, your culture, who you are. I'm just going to put on there a blank canvas. And I'm going to, what do we do with blank canvases? For all the therapists amongst us, when we're talking about blank canvas, it's a very psychodynamic view, or a therapist is a blank canvas, which means you, as my client, you are now projecting onto me, transference onto me, what your issues may be. So are we doing that for somebody else? So I'm going to project onto you what I see in you rather than looking at you and seeing yourself. So for all those ones, black or white people that are telling the kids, don't see color, I would say by stating don't see color or by not broaching the topic, you are preparing and setting your children up to fail. And what I mean by that is when you go out into the world and you go to someone that looks like me and say, Nathaniel, I don't see your color. My response would be, then you don't see me, because my identity is entrenched with so many things. And one of those things is my color. One of those things is my background, my heritage, my culture. So if you do not see that, then who are you talking to then? Because I would like to meet this Nathaniel that you are speaking to, because I do not connect with that Nathaniel. So for children, it's on this, it's beauty and wealth in our differences. Mm-hmm. This person looks like this. Why has this person got this kind of hair and I don't, mommy? Because this person is different to the way you look. Mm-hmm. It does not negate or diminish their value. We are different, and our experiences make us who we are. So yes, get to know this person. Yes, see their blackness, their whiteness, their Asian background, whatever it may be. See it, acknowledge it. And that is the way we're going to be rich. If your children feel scared out there, that you know what's a scary world, prepare your children to the possibility that they're going to experience challenges. Mm-hmm. They're going to experience people that do not love them or tickle them or tuck them into bed like we do. They're going to be people that don't have your best interest at heart. So prepare yourself for that. Mm-hmm. Don't look at the world and see the world as a dangerous place solely. See that there can be danger in the world, but also there can be beauty in the world. There can be allies left, right, and center as well. So if you are going to have that conversation with children, give them a very rounded view of, yes, there can be danger, but at the same time, you can get run over. But at the same time, you can enjoy the outside space. You can meet people that may not like you. But why would they not like me? Because they don't know you. Because if they knew you, they would love you as much as I do. And by focusing it on that, they understand that there may be people that may not like me because they don't know me. And a lot of it is because they don't know you. They don't understand you. They don't value you. But doesn't mean the outside world is such a terrible place. But have that conversation with them and focus on the positive aspects of them. Because with children, context and nuance is usually lost. Right?
Yeah.
They don't get
no, they won't.
Their beauty on how they can impact the world, what they can give to the world. And when the world sees them for the beauty they are, oh my God, they're going to love you like I love you. But if they don't, that is their loss. They are not getting blessed by having you as a friend. So that is the way that I feel professionally and personally to have that conversation about race.
Like my nephew, well, you know how Black people roll. He's not really my nephew, he's my friend's son, but let's keep it real. He calls me auntie. We'll call him That's exactly what it's up. So, and he was talking to me, you know, and one of his friends asked him about, you know, he said he was explaining to his friend Black Lives Matter. So he's 12, and his friend was like, well, like all lives matter. And so, and he, you know, because his friend is white, and so he was trying to navigate this conversation with his friend. So he's like, I don't know, I didn't know what to tell him. And I was like, well, you know, you got to kind of break it down, because now he's all of a sudden an ambassador for his race at 12, which, you know, it broke my heart. But on the other hand, I was like, well, come on, time to man up, son. This is what we're gonna have to get you. We're gonna have to man you up and see if you can be able to explain this. And so I was like, okay, you know how my father died? And he's like, yes. And I was like, okay, imagine we're at my funeral, we're at the gravesite, and then I'm mourning and I'm saying my father died, and then you come up and say my father died too. And he's like, that wouldn't be right. It's like, exactly, because right now, the time there was an incident where my father just died, right? So for you to, and that's how, you know, if you want to explain it to your friend, that's what's up. Like, you know, you get, even though, yes, of course it matters because you're his friend. And of course it matters that there are so many groups that are being persecuted right now. But today, because there is a heightened sense, there is a heightened kind of impact right now because of everything that's going on, because of these events that have accumulated in this movement rising and rearing up its head. And so he's like, okay. And so he went back and he came back. He's like, okay, Auntie, I told him. And I was like, he's like, he got it. Like he's like, he's gonna have to go back and tell his parents. And that's what really hurt my feeling. That's what really broke my heart for him, because I know that our children are a product of what they hear from us around the kitchen tables, the dinner tables. And even though we may have a big conversation with them, actually they are looking at what we're modeling out and what we said with our friends and the kind of conversations that we're having. They're hearing us like little sponges. And I don't know about that other little boy, even though he got it with him, but we'll see. We'll hope and pray.
Well, we've all got responsibility as parents.
We all have responsibilities.
We've all got responsibility as parents, whether we have our own children or we have children around us. It's a parental position that we all have. And when I speak to clients and we go into history, which is usually the most powerful stage of the sessions, exploring the past and bringing it, shining some light into it. And I describe parents as gods. And the reason why I describe parents as gods is you look to them for nurture, for shelter, for nurturing, for food, for wisdom, for guidance, for all of that. All the things we look to our own, the Almighty for. We get that from our parents initially as children. They are the all-seeing, all-knowing gods. And so it's vitally important that what we show them, directly or indirectly, we are very much aware of. And the way you described it to your nephew is very important. I want to caution people about the reaction to the All Lives Matter response for some. In this case, this is a perfect opportunity for your nephew to educate and explain what this means to his friend. It's tiresome. We are all spokespeople for our race, it seems. If you go into a room of 100 people and they're talking about certain things, what do you think, Nathaniel? Right? And in that moment, that means I cannot falter. That means I cannot fail because I've got billions of people behind me saying, represent us well, my brother. And that in itself can be draining. And there are a lot of people that are going to be listening to this and say, yes, I don't want to be the spokesperson for Blackness. But in some regards, as long as we communicate our position, if someone is saying, well, when you say Black Lives Matter, what do you mean? Well, all lives matter. Okay, this is a teaching moment. Take a seat. We're going to be here for a couple of minutes. If my house is on fire and yours isn't, and my house is the only house on this street that is on fire, you don't go to the fire brigade and say, hey, stop. Don't go over there. Put some water in my house as well. But your house is not on fire. It doesn't matter because all houses matter, right? No, this is what is burning right now. We are stating that Black Lives Matter for a reason. So it's about validating somebody's experience. Whether you can see it immediately or not, is being able to sit down and I'm prepared to hear you and listen to you and try to understand you. I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to be sitting down and try to understand where you're coming from. And therapy in itself is people sitting down and listening to each other and try to understand where the other person is coming from. So that is what I would try and encourage, not only parents of Black children, but parents of white children as well.
So I Angela just brought up a real point that I'm not sure we'll be able to address it in regards to interracial families and Black children. So speaking to, and the only reason why, even though I said in the beginning that this is definitely a platform for Black people right now, and we'll have another session for white allies and white allyism, but on the other hand, because it's Black children, that's why I was like, ooh, how do we explain, like, is there a navigation, a special consideration of navigation that has to go on when we're speaking to Black children with white parents?
How does the world see your child? Barack Obama was, I think for a long period of time, apart from Uncle Bob Marley, was probably probably the most famous mixed race person in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did the world see him? What was he known as? The first Black president.
Mm-hmm.
And I think identity, when we in therapy, when we look at identity, is the cornerstone of a strong mental health. It's a cornerstone of strong mental well-being. If your identity is not seen, if you're not seen for who you are, it affects you. You feel the world does not see who you are. Mm-hmm. And if you're a white mother to a mixed race child, there's an element of that child's identity. In some regards, if that conversation is not had, I'm not seeing that side of you. The world sees you as that. I don't see you as that. I'm not acknowledging, I'm not recognizing that part of you. It may be a difficult conversation to be had, but it's trying to understand how your child sees themselves. And having that conversation we spoke about just now from Elizabeth's question, in how do you broach that topic, that conversation? The world may see you as this and may project this onto you. And I need you, my child, to understand how this works. We call it racial socializing. In order for you to socialize someone about race, it's understanding that there's a big world out there and this is how they may see you, and in understanding that child's own sense of identity. Who am I? I don't look like you specifically, and I don't look like this person specifically. In understanding where you fit in that narrative. So it may be a difficult conversation, but I would let your child lead that conversation. I would let your child explore themselves and their identity and their beauty. And we all go through it, even growing up, is who am I? Where do I fit in? I'm Black. I'm supposed to like hip hop music, but I don't. I like Alanis Morissette. Does that make me weird? I talk a certain way, but people say you don't sound Black. Well, you know, there was a certain.
No, don't you like Alanis Morissette's Canadian? But I have
listen.
Don't sleep on Alanis Morissette, people. We love her.
Very, very ironic. Alanis Morissette was responsible for people Googling, or even before Googling, looking into the dictionaries. What does ironic mean? And it's one word in the English dictionary that most people can explain the same way. Ask two people to explain what ironic means, and both of them will come up with two different answers. How ironic is that? So having a conversation, let your children lead that conversation. Ask them that question.
But Angela brings up a good, when I say a good point, she actually represents a good point. And I know with the work that Angela does, she won't mind me using her as the class example for today. My online groups are a hot New York mess right now. So any of you who are on online groups right now that have any kind of semblance of race, and in terms of posting communities, there are, I am seeing, I'm going to say this really frankly, and I hope I don't insult anyone, but the centering of white people in the middle of the conversations in terms of what's happening with Black Lives Matter is absolutely it's incredible. So, it's not, and this is just about me. We're saying it's Black Lives Matter, and we are, we're firmly saying Black Lives Matter. We are here to celebrate Black. We are here to talk about Black. But there's an odd tension that's going on where I say that there are a lot of well-meaning allies, supportive allies that are just saying, okay, what can we do? Or we are acknowledging that the system is rigged and it's horrible, and what can we do? And me as a leader, then I'm literally getting it from all sides, where I'm almost focusing on making other people feel better and more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And saying, hey, you know what? Hey, yeah, thank you so much for checking out. Well, quite frankly, I don't feel like talking to anybody. I'm not saying I don't feel like talking to white people. I just don't want to talk to anybody. And so how, as a Black woman, Black man, how do we navigate the fact that we are, 13% of the population, and today we may be with our families and friends, and then tomorrow we're going into an environment, like we're just getting these emails, like what do we tell our white friends, our white colleagues, our white people when they're checking in, when they are sending emails, when they are wanting to support, when they are wanting to do more? let's talk about the well-meaning ones first, and we'll talk about the haters afterwards. So how should we be handling that? Because it's if I show you guys my phone right now, like I had to I remember yesterday a friend of mine emailed me. He's white, and and we're like, dude, are you emailing all the Black people on your contact list? Is that what's happening here? Like, and we have to laugh about it, like, because he is a close friend of mine, so I can't make that joke. But it's a lot right now. Like, what should we do with all this well-meaning kind of energy that's being created for the Black Lives Movement, and it's coming through us, and so where we don't necessarily want to be kind of the patron saint of Black and have to explain to everybody, this is 400 years of slavery, and this is 76 years of integration, and this, I don't want to necessarily be the educator today, but on the other hand, as you said it, we are ambassadors,
whether we like
it or not. And so how do we balance that out? Like, right, so Annie's saying, I feel you, Mel, I'm getting it from all sides, it's exhausting. Jamie's like, great question. But then you don't want to be rude or cruel or, because people, that's what we're saying. Ask a friend. That's the advice is going out. Or, like, how do you support? But then how do we reconcile these two realities, really, of people are allies who are saying, dude, this is messed up, and we've got to be doing something more than posting a black square. Where Black people are just like, well, we're just getting all these requests and all these check-ins and all of these, hey, what's up? So there'll be a lot more platforms to dialogue or give them resources. That's what Sally Chan says. What do you think, Daniel? What should we be doing with our, from your perspective, for protecting ourselves first? What should we be doing? I'll talk later in terms of the education bit.
First thing first is always, like I said, look after your mentors. Look after this, first of all. If you do not feel comfortable to respond to certain messages right now, you don't have to. There are a lot of things that we don't have to do that we feel we have to do. We don't have to engage in certain conversations at a certain point. If I do not feel like speaking to someone right now, I'm not speaking to that person right now. You have the power to choose who you interact and who you engage. Like I said earlier on, what you feed yourself. So if you're not in that space right there, acknowledge it. You know what? I'm not in a space to have this conversation right now. Maybe tomorrow, and I'll address it tomorrow. Thank you for your message yesterday. I appreciated it. It's very tiresome. And what you can do is what you've just done right now. You checked in on me, and I appreciate it. Now, moving forward, what you could do is, what would make it better for you? What do you want? Now, I don't want to be the spokesperson for all Blackness here or for all therapists here. But for me, if I'm listening to someone that's talking about how tiring it is for them to be the spokesperson for their race, I can connect to that feeling. Definitely can. But you be the spokesperson for yourself first and foremost.
Yeah.
Be the spokesperson for yourself first and foremost. What do you want from Dave? What do you want from John or Owen or whatever it may be? What do you want from that person? Because we're speaking right now about how painful it is to relive what I call the Black Holocaust. And I use that word specifically because that word resonates with a certain imagery. But this has been going on for so long, and people have been told, don't talk about your Holocaust. Don't talk about the genocidal history that you may connect with. Don't talk about that because I don't want to hear it. Now, people are going to be hearing it. Now is an opportunity for us to have, as they did in South Africa, the truth and reconciliation conversation. One that really hasn't been had over the history, right? Which is, the truth is, this is how I've been treated. The truth is, this is what I have to go through. Similarly to a conversation I had with a friend of mine years ago that opened my eyes to what it felt like, just a little bit, to be a woman. Because my friend asked me, what do you think about when you go on the tube, the underground? I said, I don't know, whether I can find a seat or not. What else do you think about? And I'm like, how crowded or how smelly it is. I'm like, oh, Lord. What else do you think about? I said, that's usually about it, where my next stop is. And I asked her, what do you think about? She's like, I don't like crowded trains. I said, why not? Because of the smell? No, because people may press up on me. Because people may leer at me. Because people may be staring at me and I feel uncomfortable. I look around in the carriages. I'm looking for allies. I'm looking for other women. Does this person look safe enough for me to sit near? Those are the conversations. Those are the thoughts that go through my mind. And then walking home late at night, I keep the keys in my hand. I'm like, why are you keeping your keys in your hand? What, so you can quickly open the door? No, just in case someone jumps out at me and I may need to protect myself. I was oblivious to this reality.
Yeah.
Without that conversation, I don't know, I may still be oblivious to that reality. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to educate as I was educated. You know, my friend may have been tired of like, why do I have to tell men this is what I go through, right? But at that point, I was the ally that was like, what's going on? Teach me, right? So we can teach someone else the way I was taught to see, not saying it's harder for me as a woman and everything else, but what does it feel like when I go through this? Talk about your stories. When you go into the shop and you run into the shop and you grab something and you step out and say, is this what you want? For me, I don't feel comfortable doing that because I know the security is looking at me, and before I even step near the door, they may jump on me or they may accost me. Those are the things I think about. When I speak to people, I speak in a certain way because I want to come across as intelligent. I don't want to say, how you doing? What's up? No, that's not intelligent. I almost want to downplay my blackness, my Africanness. And that also comes from, there's a lot of baggage with it. You sound bush, right? And bush is a very African term of saying you sound uneducated. You know, when you speak in the way you speak, you sound this. So there's so much to unpack with it. But what I would implore anyone that's got an ally that's willing to listen, explain to them what it feels like to be melanin. Just children.
Yeah. It's it's like I try to explain that to a friend of mine, and I, you know, she asked, so she did come to me and say, are you okay? And I was like, I'm pretty strong. Like, I'm pretty used to taking the micro indignities that come with being on the forefront of a Black centered program. But I remember seeing the video of the Spelman and Morehouse students in the car, and maybe because I'm a professor as well, and I just couldn't, and when I just saw their little bodies just being tased and convulsing in seizures, and I broke, and I was trying to explain to her, as an empath, I don't watch a lot of TV, right? So I don't watch CSI. All my friends know I don't watch murdery shows or bloody shows. Like, that's not, I was like, there's enough murdery, bloody stuff in the world. I can't, like, because it breaks me. And when I know that it's real people, particularly targeted for where they are in the world or what and who they are, then it breaks me. One of the things, I'm not gonna post the link, but one of the things about the Spelman and Morehouse videos that was particularly striking was that, so it was two Black students in a car, and in the car in front of them, there was a group of white students, and there was a young woman who didn't notice that what was going on behind her in regards to the police surrounding the car and tasing those two students. And she was waving to the camera because, she thought she was taking a selfie and it was the news. And that's what I remember I said that to my friend, and I was like, just don't be that person. Don't be the white person who literally is not seeing that two bodies are being violated because of the color of their skin behind them. That's all I ask. I'm not saying that you have to get it perfect. You don't need to know all of my history, because I certainly don't know all of yours. To answer Rob's question, I was born in London and raised in Switzerland and Canada and came back 14 years ago. 15 years ago, because Rob just asked that. But yeah, don't be that person. I don't expect you to know everything. I don't expect you to know all things, because I don't know everything about everyone. But I just be aware that there is a really painful episode that's going on for us in our history. And if you waving and having selfies right now, waving to the camera while it's happening right beside, and I'm your girl, like that's painful. And so for my allies, I encourage you to step sensitively, tread lightly. Don't force yourself up in the conversation. It's not about you at all. Quite frankly, an ally is someone who stands beside you. They don't need to declare themselves of their, like, I don't need you to declare yourself. I need you to declare that you're with me. And there's a very big difference between that, meaning that I don't need you to go through the historical reasons of what the support that you've given or the money that you've given, how you've donated, what you believe in. That's not what it's about. An ally is, we believe what you believe. That's what, and war, whether we're talking about World War I or World War II, or we're talking about here in race relations, that's what this is. And so it's not necessarily about you having to over compensate for the actions of your ancestors. Please don't do it, because if you do, that actually alienates people anymore. But it was just enough for my friends to know that, this is serious. It's real. I'm not, and not to invalidate my experience, and to say, what can I do? And then I'll be able to tell them, this is what you can do. And if you're not in the place to tell them, my Black people, then there are so many amazing books and resources that we will make available for you, so that you can direct our white friends, peers, colleagues, and allies to be able to say, look, I'm not the most articulate in this, but there are people who have explored this. And here you go. You don't have to be the ambassador. You can just really kindly, of course, direct other people. And people may not get it right. Just like I didn't get it right with LGBTQI conversations. My pronouns kept on messing up. Oh my gosh. I'm embarrassed thinking about it now. But thank goodness for my friends now who had grace on me for the mistake that I made when I was considering and when I was learning about their identity and their path.
Yeah, that's a good point you made there. It's a good correlation there.
So, and if not, Rob wants to know some differences that we've experienced across the regions. And Nathaniel, do you want to speak a little bit about your backgrounds?
Well, my background is I'm African that is living in the UK, and wherever I go, I'm an African that's living wherever I'm living in. That is my background. That's a
long-standing joke, Rob. Sorry, I'm laughing about that one.
That's my background. That's my identity. And yes, and wherever I've gone, I've gone there with that sense of self. So what have I experienced in different regions? I think, ignorance is a universal language, right? And I like educating. So ignorance meets educator is a perfect marriage in some cases.
You're asking what, in terms of the differences in regards to Canada, to be honest, Rob, I think Canada, it's a very different experience, of course, for Black people and for the COVID experience as well. But you know what keeps us really humble? Like, it's funny, Canada doesn't kind of go off and talk, even though people like to acknowledge it, but they don't really like to talk about kind of multiculturalism and diversity, even though it is our political policy. And the reason why is because the Canadian history of our Indigenous people is horrifically disgusting. And so no matter how many people come to me and say, oh, Mel, Canada, the land of the free, you need to move to Canada. And I was like, dude, seriously, like, you see us, right? You see your Drakes, you see all these Black Canadians doing well, do you know what, making money, living in the suburbs, but there's a stain. There's a stain on most of our countries, and there's a big stain on Canada. It keeps us humble in the sense of, how did we land on that country, land on people, and literally obliterate them and leave them to die or leave them to be, like it is actually horrific. And so between Canada and Australia, I'm like, ooh, you know, it does. There's some things, because we see Black Canadians being musicians, artists, all kinds of we're all over the place, to be fair. But when you don't see Indigenous people, like I think Chris Rock made a joke about it, like in the Macy's Day Parade, like there's no Indigenous Americans, right? Like they have to actually hire Latin American people, like Mexicans and Latin American people, to play the Indigenous people in the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. Like that's how deep it is. You don't see people on TV. Like, have you noticed? You don't see anyone on the TV screens of American TVs and Canadian TVs. You don't see so what that keeps me humble. So the experience is very different. But then on the other hand, there's an anchor that says to me, keep that grounded. It may appear to be great for Black people, but as Angela Davis, and I had the privilege and pleasure of meeting her and speaking to her a few years ago, but she's like, none of us are free right now because one of us is not free. So if one of us is still in captivity and in chains, that means none of us are free. And that's the mantra that I stand behind. But today is Black Lives Matter. Woohoo, Elvira. Oh, yes. Gina Robertson, loving this. Good times. And thank you, Elvira. Such a great session. I think that took a natural close. That took a 2-hour tings, unless I'm giving you 30 seconds to put any final questions that you'd like us to address today. Because this is a lot. I told Nathaniel, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be like an hour and a half, maybe. I'm like, and I know you guys want to get to eat and get to step in and stuff like that. The numbers have been fantastic. You've been really good. And if there are any questions, then let me know. A session is available for record. It has been recorded. It's available so that you guys can repost it as well and look at it later on. And we're going to kind of capture those key moments, the key bits of nuggets that may be helpful. Thank you guys so much, honestly, for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you, Ronke. Brilliant session. Nathaniel, do you have any final words for us in terms of how we, just to kind of a little step, how do we go a little?
Well, all I will say is, you okay?
Yeah, I am. Sorry. No, it's not COVID. Not COVID.
But that's the perfect imagery, though. You coughed, and I checked your well-being. So if your colleague, your friend, your loved one is going through something or reacting to something, check on them. Are you okay? It's as simple as that. And it's showing that humanity to one another that gives us that therapeutic blessing that we have one another. You just coughed. Are you okay? I'm going through something right now. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Just those questions. How are you? And also, we've all got our own responsibility to ourselves to look after our mental health. Mm-hmm. So take time, after we've had this conversation, some of you may be feeling actually a little bit loose, a little bit weightless right now. Or some of you may be feeling that, oh, wow, there's a lot of baggage on my chest right now. Whatever it is, don't forget to breathe, right? And look after yourself and take care of yourself, all right? That's all I would say. And I appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity for me to speak on this topic, because I know it's something that's very important out there. So definitely.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Nathaniel, so much for giving your time on these precious Sundays. We have very few minutes to be able to kind of be together with our families. And so I know your wife really well. And so thank you. She gave me, thank you for letting me have him for just a few precious moments. I really appreciate it, you and your family.
And I want to say thank you to you, by the way, because you asked earlier on, you're not at the march right now. You asked earlier on, what about the feeling of the guilt of, am I doing enough? What you are doing right now on the platform you've opened up to so many people to be able to share their experiences and ask their questions, that is worth 10 marches, because it's transformative. So thank you for doing what you're doing right now.
If it helps in any way, my friends, it's not easy for us right now. And it's been so hard to not just navigate our own path, but to help others around us navigate their path as well. And so if this has helped you, thank you. And thank you. I see all the thank yous coming through. If this has helped you, then that's all I needed for that, to give you not just, it may not have been all kind of, kind of theory and books, but certainly I just wanted to make sure that you are heard, you are seen, and you are loved. You are heard and you are seen and you are loved, and you matter, and your voice matters, and what you're going through matters. And I am here as a Black woman, a powerful Black woman, to validate your experience. That's what I needed to do today, is to make sure that we heard each other and saw that we are not alone. And in this, and it's not something that is going to, it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. And I wanted to make sure that we focus on ourselves and focus on our grieving process, our healing process, so that we are empowered to walk out our lives purposefully. And I also wanted to give an opportunity for our white allies to just hear, this is what we're talking about. These are the things that are worrying us, just like you. It's our children, it's our boss, it's how to get through a day by day. We are remarkably alike in so many ways. So hopefully this has been helpful to you and has created space in your hearts to not only give grace to yourself, but please give grace to each other. There are real enemies out there. There are enemies out there who will have you as a human being invalidated and your experiences invalidated. And I read, all you have to do is read some of our papers and you know which ones. So please, if I leave you with anything, I want you to have grace on yourself, and I want you to have grace on each other.
Definitely.
So thank you. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Yay, this is my first time using StreamYard. How did it work? Give me some feedback. We're back to normal. Give me some feedback, and then we can talk about it afterwards. But thank you so much, and I will speak to you on the other side. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.